Ethan sat in the dim glow of his laptop, finishing the last details of a project proposal that had consumed his week. The clock on the wall read 8:47 p.m. He glanced at his phone. No messages from Laura yet. She'd been working late more frequently. These past 3 months always with the same explanation. End-of-quarter chaos demanding clients, her boss Marcus pushing for perfection. He trusted her. They'd been married for 6 years, together for 9. Laura was his college sweetheart, the woman who'd stood by him through his father's death, through his career changes, through everything. She was his anchor, his certainty in an uncertain world. His phone buzzed, finally. But it wasn't Laura's name on the screen. It was an unknown number with a 917 area code. The message was simple, brutal, a photograph. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The image showed Laura at what appeared to be an upscale hotel bar. He recognized the distinctive Art Deco lighting of the metropolitan downtown. She wore the navy dress she'd left in that morning, the one that hugged her figure perfectly. Beside her sat Marcus Reynolds, her boss, a man Ethan had met twice at company functions. Marcus's hand rested on Laura's thigh, dangerously high, possessive. Laura's head was tilted toward him, laughing at something he'd said, her hand on his arm. The intimacy in the photograph was unmistakable. Another message appeared. "I thought you should know. Catherine Reynolds." Ethan stared at the name. Marcus's wife. He'd met her once, briefly, at a holiday party 2 years ago. An elegant woman with sharp eyes and a warmer smile than her husband possessed. His hands trembled as he set the phone down. The room suddenly felt airless, the walls pressing in. Every late night, every quick meeting, every time Laura had come home smelling of expensive wine and cologne that wasn't hers, it all crystallized into a new, horrifying pattern. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Laura. "Just a quick meeting. I'll be home soon. Love you." The casualness of her lie ignited something cold and calculating in Ethan's chest. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he sat there, methodically replaying the past 3 months in his mind. The new lingerie she'd bought, claiming it was for herself. The way she'd started going to the gym before work instead of after. The weekend conference in Boston where she'd barely answered his calls. How long had this been going on? Another message from Catherine Reynolds. "I know this is a shock. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But you deserve to know the truth. I've been watching them for weeks." Ethan's fingers hovered over his keyboard. He wanted to respond, to demand answers. But something stopped him. A voice in his head, cool, rational, told him to wait. To think, to plan. At 9:23 p.m., Laura sent another text. "Meeting running longer than expected. Probably won't be home until 11. Don't wait up." Ethan looked at the photo again, at the timestamp, 8:52 p.m. She'd sent her text about the quick meeting at 8:45. She was lying to him in real time, crafting her alibi while sitting in a hotel bar with another man's hand on her leg. The rage that should have consumed him never came. Instead, an eerie calm settled over him. He opened his messages. Attached, the photo Catherine had sent, and typed a single line to Laura. "So how long has your meeting been going on?" He hit send and set his phone face down on the desk. 3 seconds passed. 5, 10, then his phone exploded with activity. It rang. Laura's face smiling up at him from the screen, a photo from their honeymoon in Santorini. He watched it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. It went to voicemail. Immediately she called again. He let it ring out. Text messages began flooding in. "Ethan, I can explain. It's not what it looks like. Please pick up. Ethan, please." He powered off his laptop, walked to the kitchen, and poured himself a whiskey, Macallan 18, a bottle they'd been saving for their anniversary next month. He sat in the darkness of their living room, the only light coming from his phone screen as it continued to vibrate with incoming calls and messages, all ignored. At 10:47 p.m., a different number called, Catherine Reynolds. This time Ethan answered, "Mr. Garrett?" The voice was composed, almost eerily calm. "This is Catherine Reynolds. I assume you received my message." Ethan took a slow sip of whiskey, letting the silence stretch between them. Through his front window, he could see their quiet suburban street, peaceful and ordinary. Inside this house, his entire world had just collapsed. "I did." "I'm sorry," Catherine said, and he believed her. There was no triumph in her tone, no schadenfreude, just the flat exhaustion of someone who'd been carrying a terrible weight for far too long. "I debated whether to send it, but I figured you deserve to know, just like I deserve to know." "How long have you known?" Ethan asked. "I started suspecting about 4 months ago. Marcus became careless, coming home later, being more secretive with his phone. The classic signs." Catherine laughed bitterly. "I hired a private investigator 6 weeks ago. I have photographs, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, everything dated, everything documented." Ethan's grip tightened on his glass. 4 months, while he'd been planning their anniversary trip, researching restaurants for her birthday dinner. She'd been building a separate life with another man. "Your wife is calling you repeatedly, isn't she?" Catherine asked. "Yes. Mine too. Marcus has called me 17 times in the last hour. I haven't answered." She paused. "They're probably together right now, panicking." The image made Ethan's stomach turn. Laura and Marcus huddled together in that hotel bar, desperate and afraid, their affair suddenly exposed. Part of him wanted to answer Laura's calls, to hear her scramble for explanations, to witness her world crumbling in real time. But the calculating part of his mind, the part that had taken over since he saw that photograph, told him to stay silent. Silence was power. Silence made them spiral. "Mr. Garrett, may I call you Ethan?" "Yes." "Ethan, I didn't just call to apologize. I called because I have a proposition." Catherine's voice shifted, acquiring an edge of steel. "I've been planning my divorce for weeks. I have an excellent attorney, all my documentation in order. In New York, infidelity matters in divorce proceedings, especially in custody and asset division. I intend to take Marcus for everything he's worth." "What does this have to do with me?" "Your wife works for my husband. She's his subordinate. That makes their relationship not just adultery, but a massive HR violation and potential grounds for a lawsuit against the company. Marcus is a vice president at Meridian Marketing. They have a strict fraternization policy." Catherine's words came faster now, more animated. "If we coordinate our approach, we can do maximum damage. To both of them." Ethan stood and walked to the window. A car turned onto their street. For a moment he thought it might be Laura's sedan, but it continued past their house. "You want revenge?" "I want justice," Catherine corrected. "And I suspect you do too." "Did he?" Ethan examined his feelings like a surgeon probing a wound. The betrayal was there, sharp and fresh. But underneath it lay something else. A cold, methodical desire to ensure Laura understood the magnitude of what she'd destroyed. Not through violence or rage, but through consequences. "What exactly are you proposing?" "We meet. Tomorrow, if you're willing. I show you everything I've gathered. The PI's full report, the financial record showing Marcus's spending on hotels and gifts. We build a timeline together. Then we go to Meridian's HR department and board of directors with a formal complaint. We file for divorce simultaneously with all evidence attached. We control the narrative before they can. It was a strategy born of careful planning and deep hurt." Ethan recognized something of himself in Catherine's approach. The need to impose order on chaos, to transform pain into action. "I need time to think," Ethan said. "Of course, but don't take too long. The longer they have to prepare their defense, the harder this becomes." She paused. "I'm texting you my address. Come by tomorrow at noon if you're interested. No pressure." "But Ethan?" "Yes? We didn't deserve this, either of us, and they shouldn't get away with it." After she hung up, Ethan stood in the darkness for a long time. His phone had finally stopped buzzing with Laura's messages. He picked it up and scrolled through them. 43 texts, 19 calls. The messages evolved from denial to bargaining. Please let me explain. I made a mistake. I love you. I'm coming home. Please don't do anything rash. At 11:34 p.m., headlights swept across the front windows. Laura's car pulled into the driveway. Ethan heard her key in the lock, heard her footsteps in the foyer. Ethan? Her voice was small, frightened. Ethan, where are you? He didn't answer. He sat in the armchair in the darkened living room, the whiskey glass in his hand, watching as she appeared in the doorway. She'd been crying. Her makeup was smeared, her eyes red and swollen. Please, Laura whispered. Please let me explain. Ethan took another sip of whiskey and looked at the woman he'd loved for 9 years. In the dim light from the hallway, she looked like a stranger. Explain what, Laura? His voice was quiet, almost gentle. Explain how long you've been sleeping with your boss. Explain which lies were the biggest. Explain how you looked me in the eye this morning and kissed me goodbye before going to meet him. It's not... She stopped, realizing that denial was pointless. It's complicated. No, Ethan said. It's actually very simple. You made a choice. Every day for 4 months, you made a choice. How did you... Laura's face went pale. Catherine, she sent you that photo. She did. Laura moved toward him, but stopped when he raised his hand. Don't, he said. I think you should sleep in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow we'll talk, but right now I can't even look at you. Ethan didn't sleep. He lay in their bed, his bed now, he supposed, staring at the ceiling while Laura's muffled crying came through the walls from the guest room. Around 3 a.m. the crying stopped. Around 4 a.m. he heard her get up and pace. He wondered if she was texting Marcus, coordinating their story, or if she was simply drowning in the reality of what she'd done. At dawn, Ethan showered, dressed in his best suit, and made coffee. When Laura emerged from the guest room at 7:30, hollow-eyed and devastated, he was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop and a notepad. I need to know everything, he said without preamble. The truth, Laura, all of it. When it started, how far it went. She sat across from him, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee she wasn't drinking. It started about 4 months ago, she whispered, after the strategy retreat in the Hamptons. We'd all been drinking, and Marcus and I ended up talking on the beach. He told me I was brilliant, that I was wasted in my current role. He made me feel seen. I see you, Ethan said flatly. I know you do. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But it was different. He understood the pressure at work, the politics I was navigating. You try to understand, but you're not in that world, so you fucked him. Laura flinched at the crudeness. It didn't start physical right away. For weeks it was just texts, long conversations about work, then about life. Then he kissed me in the parking garage one night. And I didn't stop him. How many times? Ethan's voice remained eerily calm. Ethan, how many times did you sleep with him? She closed her eyes. I don't know, maybe 20? Usually at hotels during lunch, sometimes after work. Last week we went to Atlantic City for the night and I told you it was a client dinner. 20 times. Each one a deliberate choice, a deliberate betrayal. Ethan made notes on his pad, his hand steady despite the nausea rising in his throat. Do you love him? No, Laura said immediately. No, I don't. It was just an escape from reality, from stress. It was stupid and selfish, and I hate myself for it. Does he love you? I don't think Marcus is capable of loving anyone but himself. Ethan looked up. Then why did you risk everything for him? Laura had no answer to that. She sat there, broken and small, and for a moment Ethan felt a flicker of the love he'd once had for her. But it was distant now, like a photograph fading in sunlight. I have a meeting at noon, Ethan said, standing. When I get back, I want you to start looking for a place to stay. Call your sister, call your parents, I don't care. But I need space to think, and I can't do that with you here. Ethan, please. Can't we try counseling? Can't we? You destroyed our marriage, Laura, not me. You don't get to dictate how I process that. He left her sitting at the kitchen table, picked up the folder he'd prepared overnight. Copies of their financial statements, mortgage papers, and bank records, and drove to Catherine Reynolds' address in Westchester. The house was impressive, a modern colonial with manicured gardens. Catherine answered the door herself, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater. But there was nothing casual about her eyes. They held the same cold determination Ethan felt in his own chest. "Come in," she said. "I've set up everything in the study." The study was lined with bookshelves and dominated by a large desk covered in organized stacks of documents. Catherine had clearly been military in her preparation. Photographs, printed text, credit card statements, GPS data from Marcus's car, it was all there. A complete chronicle of the affair. "Jesus," Ethan breathed, looking at the scope of it. "I'm a patent attorney," Catherine said with a grim smile. "I know how to build a case. The PI I hired is former FBI. His documentation will hold up in any court." They spent the next 3 hours going through everything. The affair had started at the Hamptons retreat, just as Laura had said. The photographs showed Marcus and Laura at various hotels, restaurants, even a weekend in Atlantic City. The credit card statements revealed that Marcus had spent over $30,000 on the affair. Expensive dinners, hotel rooms, jewelry that Ethan had never seen Laura wear. "He bought her a Cartier bracelet," Catherine said, pointing to a receipt, $3,000. "Charged it to our joint account. Laura came home with a new bracelet about 6 weeks ago," Ethan said slowly. "She told me it was a gift from her aunt." Catherine's expression was grim. "She's probably wearing it right now." The most damaging documents were the text messages. Catherine's PI had somehow obtained them. Ethan didn't ask how. And they painted a picture of two people who were reckless in their selfishness. Marcus complained about Catherine, calling her cold and controlling. Laura complained about Ethan, calling him safe and boring. That hurt more than he'd expected. Safe. Boring. The man who'd supported her career, who'd moved cities for her promotion, who'd planned surprise trips and learned to cook her favorite meals. That man was boring. "I'm sorry you had to see that," Catherine said quietly. "No," Ethan replied. "I needed to see it. I needed to understand who she really is." "What did she tell you this morning?" Ethan recounted Laura's confession. Catherine listened, nodding occasionally, making notes. Their stories match, which means they coordinated. Catherine observed. "Marcus told me something similar. That it was a mistake, that it meant nothing, that he chose me. But the evidence says otherwise." She pulled out another document. "This is from 2 weeks ago. A text from Marcus to Laura. I think I'm falling for you. We need to talk about what happens next." "What happens next?" Ethan repeated. They were planning a future, or at least considering one. Catherine sat back. "The question is, what happens next for us?" Catherine had coffee brought in by a housekeeper, a quiet woman who seemed to sense the gravity of what was happening and disappeared quickly. As Ethan sipped the dark roast, Catherine laid out her strategy with the precision of a general planning a campaign. Marcus is a VP at Meridian Marketing, which makes him Laura's direct superior. Their relationship violates company policy on multiple levels: workplace ethics, power dynamics, and the fraternization clause. She slid a printed document across the desk. I pulled Meridian's employee handbook. Page 47, Section 12. Romantic relationships between supervisors and direct reports are strictly prohibited and constitute grounds for immediate termination. Ethan scanned the document. The language was clear, unambiguous. "So if we report this, Marcus gets fired. Possibly Laura too, depending on how vindictive the board feels." Catherine's expression was cold. "But here's what makes it nuclear. Meridian is currently negotiating a merger with Takahashi International. Due diligence is happening now. Any whiff of scandal, especially involving executive misconduct, could tank the deal. The board will want to act fast to contain the damage. You've thought this through." "I've had 6 weeks to think about nothing else." Catherine pulled out another folder. "I've also been documenting Marcus's other behavior. Expense report irregularities. Questionable client dinners that look more like personal entertainment. Nothing criminal, but enough to establish a pattern of poor judgment." Ethan felt a distant admiration for Catherine's thoroughness. She'd transformed her pain into strategy, her betrayal into ammunition. It was exactly what he was trying to do, but she'd had a head start. "There's something else you should know," Catherine said, her voice softening slightly. "I contacted Marcus's previous employer. He left a firm in Chicago 5 years ago. I know someone who worked there. He left because of a similar situation, an affair with a junior associate that got messy. He has a pattern. He's a predator who uses his position to manipulate younger women." Catherine's knuckles whitened around her coffee cup. I've spent my marriage making excuses for him, telling myself that his ego needed feeding, that his ambition made him difficult. But the truth is simpler. He's just a selfish man who takes what he wants without considering the consequences. Ethan thought about Laura's words that morning. It was an escape, but what was she escaping from? A loving marriage? A partner who supported her? No, she was escaping from the mundane reality of commitment, from the hard work of sustaining love beyond its initial spark. She'd chosen easy passion over earned intimacy. "What's your timeline?" Ethan asked. "My attorney files divorce papers Wednesday morning. I'm requesting full custody of our daughter, primary residence in the house, and a significant portion of assets based on his infidelity and financial misconduct." Catherine's gaze was steel. "Tuesday afternoon, the day before we go to Meridian's board together. We present evidence of the affair, the policy violations, and the risk to their merger. We request a formal investigation. And Laura? If she's smart, she resigns before they can fire her. If she fights it," Catherine shrugged. "The documentation doesn't lie." Ethan imagined Laura's face when she realized the full scope of what was coming. Not just the end of their marriage, but potentially the destruction of her career. The career she'd valued enough to betray him for. "One thing I don't understand," Ethan said. "Why are you helping me like this? Why not just handle your own divorce and let me figure mine out?" Catherine was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of genuine pain beneath the strategic exterior. "Because I know what you're feeling right now. The shock, the anger, the way you're trying to hold yourself together while everything falls apart. I had to go through the first few weeks alone figuring this out by myself." She met his eyes. "No one should have to do this alone. And frankly, having you there when we confront Meridian makes the case stronger. Two betrayed spouses presenting evidence together is more powerful than one." It made sense, but Ethan suspected there was more to it. Perhaps Catherine needed a partner in this. Someone who understood the peculiar pain of being betrayed by the person you trusted most. Perhaps she needed to feel less alone in her rage. "I'm in," Ethan said, "but I need to handle something first." When Ethan returned home that evening, Laura was packing. Boxes were scattered around the bedroom, clothes piled on the bed. She looked up when he entered, her eyes hopeful and desperate. "I found a temporary apartment," she said quickly. "Month-to-month lease. I'll move out this week, give you space. And I've been researching marriage counselors. There's a woman in Manhattan who specializes in—" "I'm filing for divorce," Ethan said. The words hung in the air between them. Laura's face crumpled, but Ethan felt nothing but a distant ache like the memory of an old injury. "Please," she whispered. "Please don't decide that now. We can work through this. I know we can. I'll do anything. There's something else." Ethan pulled out his phone and showed her the evidence Catherine had compiled. "Tuesday afternoon, Catherine Reynolds and I are going to Meridian's board of directors. We're presenting a formal complaint about your relationship with Marcus, complete with documentation of policy violations." Laura's face went white. "You can't, Ethan, you'll destroy my career." "You destroyed it yourself," he replied. "I'm just making sure there are consequences." "I'll lose everything. My job, my reputation in the industry. You should have thought about that before you decided to fuck your married boss." Ethan's voice remained calm, almost conversational. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to resign from Meridian tomorrow morning. You're going to submit a letter citing personal reasons, and you're going to leave quietly. If you do that, I'll consider asking Catherine to delay the board presentation, maybe give you a chance to find another job before this becomes public. And if I don't, then Tuesday afternoon everyone at Meridian learns exactly what you've been doing. The board, HR, your colleagues, it becomes part of the company record. Any future employer who does a background check will eventually hear about it." Laura sank onto the bed, her hands shaking. "This isn't you. This coldness, this revenge, it's not who you are." "You're right," Ethan said. "It's not who I was. But you changed me, Laura. You took the man who trusted you, who loved you unconditionally, and you taught him that trust is a weakness. Congratulations." He left her there and walked to the kitchen, pouring himself another whiskey. Through the doorway he could hear her crying again, but the sound didn't move him the way it might have days ago. Something fundamental had broken inside him. Not just his love for her, but his ability to feel sympathy for her pain. She'd made her choices. Now she could live with them. His phone buzzed. A text from Catherine. Marcus just left the house. Took a bag, didn't say where he's going. Probably running to a hotel to think. Ethan replied. Laura's packing. I told her she needs to resign tomorrow. Good, let them scramble. See you Tuesday at 2 p.m., Meridian headquarters. Ethan looked at his reflection in the kitchen window. The man staring back at him was someone new, harder, colder, but perhaps more honest. He'd spent 6 years being the good husband, the supportive partner, the safe choice. Where had that gotten him? Tomorrow Laura would resign. Wednesday, Marcus would be blindsided by divorce papers, and Ethan and Catherine would watch their former spouse's worlds collapse with the same cold satisfaction their betrayal had earned. It wasn't the ending he'd imagined for his marriage, but it was the ending that betrayal deserved. Tuesday afternoon arrived like a storm that had been building on the horizon for weeks. Ethan stood outside Meridian Marketing's glass headquarters in Midtown, straightening his tie for the third time. Beside him, Catherine looked composed in a charcoal business suit, a leather portfolio under her arm containing the evidence that would end careers. Ready? She asked. No, Ethan admitted, but let's do it anyway. The receptionist led them to a conference room on the executive floor. 3 board members waited. Eleanor Harcourt, the CEO, David Chen, General Counsel, and Patricia Morrison, the HR Director. Their expressions were professionally neutral, but Ethan could see the concern beneath it. Catherine had requested this meeting through her attorney with enough vague warnings about executive misconduct to get their attention. Thank you for meeting with us, Catherine began, her voice steady and authoritative. We're here regarding Marcus Reynolds and Laura Garrett, who've been engaged in a sexual relationship in violation of company policy for approximately 4 months. She slid the first set of documents across the table. The board members leaned forward, and Ethan watched their expressions shift from skepticism to shock to carefully controlled anger as they reviewed the evidence. Hotel receipts, photographs, text messages, GPS data. The timeline was irrefutable. Jesus Christ, David Chen muttered, then caught himself. Apologies. Mr. Reynolds is a vice president and Ms. Garrett's direct supervisor, Catherine continued. Their relationship clearly violates Section 12 of your employee handbook regarding fraternization. Moreover, Mr. Reynolds has used company resources for personal purposes, company credit cards for hotels, claiming personal dinners as client entertainment. Eleanor Harcourt's jaw tightened. How long have you known about this, Mrs. Reynolds? 6 weeks. I wanted to be thorough before bringing it to your attention. My attorney will be filing divorce papers tomorrow morning, and Mr. Garrett will be filing shortly after. Patricia Morrison looked at Ethan. Mr. Garrett, I'm deeply sorry you've been put in this position. Did your wife indicate whether other employees were aware of this relationship? I don't know, Ethan replied. But according to her, they were indiscreet. Hotel bars, business lunches. Someone else may have noticed. The implications settled over the room. If other employees had known and said nothing, it suggested a deeper cultural problem. If the affair became public during the Takahashi merger negotiations, the scandal could cost millions. David Chen was already on his phone, texting rapidly. I'm having security escort Mr. Reynolds to this conference room immediately. We need to hear his side before we make any decisions. There's one more thing, Catherine said quietly. She pulled out the final document in her portfolio. I did some research into Mr. Reynolds' employment history. He left Hammond & Associates in Chicago 5 years ago. I contacted a former colleague there who confirmed he left due to a similar situation, an inappropriate relationship with a junior associate. Eleanor Harcourt's face darkened. Why wasn't this disclosed during our hiring process? Because Hammond allowed him to resign quietly rather than firing him, and they agreed not to discuss the reasons for his departure to avoid legal complications. Catherine's voice was ice. My husband is a predator who uses his position to manipulate younger, vulnerable employees. This isn't a mistake. It's a pattern. The silence that followed was profound. Ethan could see the calculations happening behind Eleanor's eyes. Legal liability, reputation damage, the merger at risk. Marcus Reynolds had become a problem that needed to be excised quickly and completely. 15 minutes later, security escorted Marcus into the conference room. He walked in confident, then froze when he saw Ethan and Catherine sitting at the table. The color drained from his face. Marcus, Eleanor said coldly. Sit down. We need to discuss some serious allegations. What followed was brutal. Marcus tried denial first, then minimization, then blame. He claimed Laura had pursued him, that he'd tried to end it multiple times, that he'd never meant for things to go so far. But the evidence didn't lie, and the board members' expressions grew colder with each excuse. You violated company policy, damaged our reputation, and lied repeatedly to this board, Eleanor finally said. You're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You'll have 1 hour under supervision to collect your personal belongings. Your company equipment, access cards, and credit cards are to be surrendered now. Marcus's face went through a series of expressions: shock, anger, desperation. You can't do this. I've worked here for 8 years. I've brought in millions in revenue. You've also opened this company to massive legal liability and damaged a critical business negotiation. David Chen interrupted. You're lucky we're letting you resign instead of firing you for cause. That decision is contingent on you leaving quietly, signing the separation agreement our attorneys will draft, and never speaking publicly about this situation. Marcus looked at Catherine, at Ethan. This is because of you two. You planned this together, didn't you? Conspired to destroy me. You destroyed yourself, Catherine said simply. We just documented it. Security escorted Marcus out. Through the conference room windows, Ethan watched him cross the office floor, watched his former colleagues turn to stare, watched the whispers begin. By tomorrow, everyone at Meridian would know why Marcus Reynolds had been terminated. Eleanor Harcourt turned to Ethan and Catherine. What about Laura Garrett? She resigned yesterday morning, Ethan said. Personal reasons? Smart woman. Eleanor's expression softened slightly. Mr. Garrett, Mrs. Reynolds, I want to apologize on behalf of Meridian Marketing. This should never have happened under our roof. We'll be conducting a full review of our policies and implementing additional training to prevent future incidents. As they left the building, Catherine turned to Ethan. How do you feel? Empty, he admitted. I thought I'd feel satisfied, vindicated, but mostly I just feel tired. It'll take time, Catherine said. The anger fades, but the hurt takes longer. She paused at her car. I'm meeting with my attorney tomorrow to finalize the divorce filing. Do you have a lawyer yet? Meeting with one Thursday. Catherine pulled out a business card. Use mine. Laura Feldman, she specializes in high-conflict divorces. Tell her I referred you. She's expensive but worth it. Ethan took the card. Thank you. For everything. I couldn't have done this without you. We helped each other, Catherine replied. Sometimes that's all you can do. Find someone who understands and hold on until the storm passes. 3 weeks later, Ethan sat in his therapist's office trying to articulate the strange limbo he'd been living in. Laura had moved out completely, taking only what was hers and leaving the house feeling hollow. The divorce papers had been filed. Through his attorney, Laura had sent apology letters that Ethan hadn't read. He'd heard from friends that she'd moved back to her parents' house in Connecticut, that she was looking for work outside the city, that she was devastated. He felt nothing about that, nothing at all. That was what worried him most. It's normal, Dr. Rivera said. You're emotionally anesthetized right now. It's a protective mechanism. When you're ready, the feelings will come back. What if I don't want them to come back? Ethan asked. What if staying numb is easier? Easier, yes, but not healing. Dr. Rivera leaned forward. Eventually, you'll need to process not just what Laura did, but who you want to be after this. That's the real work. That evening, Ethan's phone rang. Catherine Reynolds. I wanted to thank you, she said. The divorce proceedings started today. My attorney presented the evidence and Marcus's attorney immediately requested settlement negotiations. They know they can't fight this. That's good news. It is. But that's not why I called. Catherine paused. I wanted to check on you. You seemed disconnected when we left Meridian. I'm fine, Ethan said automatically. No, you're not. Neither am I. Catherine's voice was gentle. I've been going to therapy twice a week. It helps having someone to talk to who isn't part of this mess. Have you considered it? Started last week. Good, good. Another pause. Would you want to get coffee sometime? Not as co-conspirators or divorce strategists, just as two people trying to figure out how to be human again. Ethan considered it. Catherine Reynolds, the woman who'd helped him destroy his marriage and his wife's career, the woman who understood betrayal in a way no one else could. Was friendship possible? Was anything beyond their shared trauma possible? Coffee sounds good, he finally said. They met the following Saturday at a cafe in Riverside Park, far from Midtown and Meridian and the ruins of their former lives. They talked about therapy, about their divorces, about the strange process of rebuilding an identity around something other than marriage. Catherine was funny, Ethan discovered, with a dry wit that emerged when she wasn't in strategy mode. And she was kind, asking about his work, his friends, the book he was reading. It's strange, Catherine said as they walked along the river. I spent so long being angry, planning, executing revenge. Now that it's done, I don't know what to do with myself. Yeah, Ethan agreed. I keep waiting for the satisfaction to hit, the sense that justice was served. But it just feels hollow. Maybe that's the real lesson, Catherine said. Revenge doesn't heal you. It just gives you something to focus on instead of the pain. They walked in comfortable silence for a while. In the distance, runners passed by. Children played, couples held hands. Normal life continuing around them while they existed in the aftermath of their private catastrophes. I don't think I'll ever trust anyone the way I trusted Laura, Ethan said quietly. That's what she really took from me. Not just the relationship, but the ability to believe someone when they say they love me. Catherine stopped walking and turned to face him. I feel the same way. But my therapist asked me something interesting last week. Would I rather be someone who can trust despite being hurt, or someone who's safe but closed off forever? She smiled sadly. I don't know the answer yet. Me neither. As weeks turned to months, Ethan and Catherine's coffee meetings became a regular thing. They were friends, though their friendship was built on uncommon ground. They understood each other's damage in a way others couldn't. When Ethan's divorce was finalized in March, Catherine was the first person he called. When Catherine learned Marcus had already moved in with another woman, someone from his gym, 20 years his junior, Ethan was there to listen to her rage and hurt. He hasn't changed at all, Catherine said bitterly. He'll do this to her too eventually. Probably, Ethan agreed. But that's not your problem anymore. I know. It just makes me feel stupid for ever believing him. You're not stupid for believing someone you loved. They're the ones who failed, not us. It became their mantra, the thing they told each other when the doubt crept in. They failed, not us. In May, Ethan ran into Laura at a restaurant in Chelsea. She was with friends, laughing at something someone had said, looking healthier than she had in their last months together. Their eyes met across the room. She gave him a tentative smile, uncertain. He nodded acknowledgement and turned back to his dinner companions. Later, she approached his table as she was leaving. Ethan, hi. Laura. You look good, she said, and he could hear the regret in her voice, the wish that things had been different. So do you. An awkward pause. I've been in therapy, working on a lot of things, understanding why I did what I did. She took a breath. I know you probably don't want to hear this, but I need to say it. I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Not for getting caught, but for hurting you. You deserved better. Ethan looked at the woman he'd once loved more than anything. He felt pity, maybe, sadness for what they'd lost. But not forgiveness, not yet. Maybe not ever. Thank you for saying that, he replied. I hope you find what you're looking for. It wasn't closure exactly, but it was something. By summer, Ethan had sold the house on Too Many Memories and moved to a smaller apartment in Brooklyn. He'd been promoted at work, took up running again, traveled to Iceland with friends. He was building a life that didn't have Laura-shaped holes in it. It wasn't the life he'd planned, but it was becoming his. Catherine called him one evening in July. I got full custody, she said, her voice thick with emotion. The judge agreed that Marcus's pattern of behavior and financial irresponsibility made me the better primary parent. Catherine, that's wonderful. It is. It really is. She laughed, the first truly happy sound he'd heard from her. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, but maybe things are actually going to be okay. Maybe they are, Ethan agreed. A year after the photograph that had changed everything, Ethan and Catherine met for their usual coffee. They'd become something neither had expected. Genuine friends. People who cared about each other's lives beyond their shared trauma. I went on a date last week, Catherine admitted. First one since Marcus. How was it? Terrifying, wonderful, awful. He was nice, though. A professor at Columbia. We're seeing each other again next weekend. That's great, Ethan said, and meant it. What about you? Are you ready to date again? Ethan considered. Not yet. But someday, I'm starting to believe I could be. That's progress, Catherine said. She raised her coffee cup. To progress. To healing. To becoming people who can trust again even though it scares us. Ethan clinked his cup against hers. To surviving. No, Catherine corrected gently. To living. And in that moment, sitting in the summer sunshine with a friend who understood the depths he'd fallen to, and the height he was climbing toward, Ethan realized she was right. He was no longer just surviving the wreckage of his marriage. He was learning to live again. The betrayal would always be part of his story. The photograph, the alliance with Catherine, the calculated revenge, it had all happened and it had changed him. But it wasn't the end of his story. It was simply the painful middle, the darkness before dawn, and dawn, he was discovering, always came eventually. Epilogue. 2 years later, Ethan received a wedding invitation in the mail. Catherine Reynolds to James Hawthorne. He smiled at the heavy cardstock, the elegant calligraphy. She'd called him when she got engaged, nervous and excited and cautious all at once. I never thought I'd want to get married again, she'd said. But James, he's different, patient, kind. He knows everything about Marcus, about the divorce, and he doesn't run away. Then he's smart enough to know what he's got, Ethan had replied. At the wedding, held in a garden in Westchester, Ethan watched Catherine marry a man who looked at her like she was the sun itself. During her speech, she thanked her friends and family and then paused. I also want to thank someone who helped me through the darkest time of my life, she said, her eyes finding Ethan in the crowd. Someone who understood what it was like to have your world fall apart, and who stood with me while we both figured out how to put it back together. Thank you, Ethan, for being there, for being a friend when I needed one most. After the ceremony, they stood together on the edge of the garden, watching the celebration. Are you happy? Ethan asked. Terrified, Catherine admitted. But yes, happy. She looked at him. What about you? Your +1 canceled at the last minute, I noticed. Yeah, things didn't work out. But it's okay. I'm learning that not every relationship has to be forever to be worthwhile. That's very mature of you. Well, I had a good therapist. And a good friend, Catherine smiled. You know what the strangest thing is? I don't think about Marcus anymore. Not with anger, not with regret. He's just someone I used to know, someone who taught me what I didn't want. Same with Laura, Ethan said. Sometimes I wonder what she's doing, if she's okay. But it's not my responsibility anymore. No, Catherine agreed. It's not. They stood in comfortable silence, two people who'd walked through fire together and emerged on the other side. Not unchanged, that would have been impossible, but stronger, wiser, more careful with their hearts but not closed off to the possibility of love. Because that was the final lesson, the one that took the longest to learn. Betrayal could break you, but it didn't have to define you. You could survive it, process it, learn from it, and eventually, if you were brave enough and did the work and surrounded yourself with people who understood, you could even transcend it. The photograph still existed somewhere in Ethan's email, Catherine's first message to him. But he never looked at it anymore. He didn't need to. That moment, the moment his marriage ended, was behind him now. Ahead lay only possibility.